This lecture is for lesson 3. To start lesson 3, I have here 3 activities for you to understand what makes ethical principles different from moral standards. So last meeting, our discussion is about moral standards generally speaking and how we distinguish them one from the other. So moral standards, generally speaking, are not always consistent with ethical principles because moral standards are actually rules you follow depending on what source. So, cultural etiquette, law, and religion may have moral standards that you follow which are not necessarily or always consistent with moral standards. That was our last topic. So, this lesson will help you understand why ethical principles are different from all other moral standards. So these 3 pictures here represent situations in your daily lives, or they could show you sometimes in your daily lives how ethical principles are different from moral standards coming from other sources other than ethics. Remember as well how we defined ethical principles last meeting. The very important aspects of such definition is or are the second, third, and fourth conditions discussed last time. Remember that the first condition is actually it deals with things, matters that could harm or benefit others. Okay? Sa level ng definition na yan, pare-pareho lahat yung etiquette, religion, and law. But what makes ethical principles different is its universal validity, meaning valid sa lahat ng tao regardless of differences, culture, gender, and etc. Second, it has overriding value. Ibig sabihin, pag nag-conflict ang dalawang values, even if they are valid values, moral ethical standards should prevail over other values. And fourth, the source. What makes ethical principles fundamental is its source. It is based on the adequacy of reason that support or justify them. Unlike tradition, consensus in law, and authority in religion as well. So, right now, these caricatures, cartoons will help you understand why. First, you have here 2 persons arguing regarding the number of wooden planks in front of them. The first person argues there are 4. The second person argues there are 3. If you're looking at the object they were referring to, tama naman silang dalawa, no? So, 4 naman talaga yan, 3 naman talaga yon. Okay. Well, that is an illusion, I know, but the point here is, there could be situations in your lives when this actually happens. What are these examples? This happen in your lives when you obviously see a very, very clear reality from your view. Likewise, the other person also sees a very, very clear reality from his view. But those views you actually see are inconsistent with each other. Magkaiba yung pagtingin. Pero remember, iisang realidad yan. So this could happen, no? From your view, iba. From his or her view, iba rin. But you are looking at one and the same reality, meaning pareho kayong tama. So what makes you both wrong? What makes you both wrong is when you insist that your view is the only correct view. Okay? And sometimes this happens to you when you are merely basing your answers, your reasoning, from generally speaking moral standards, from your own culture against another's culture, from your own laws against another's laws, and of course, from your own religion against another person's also way of viewing reality from his or her religion. What then is the ethical view? The ethical view actually is you go and look at the other's perspective before making a judgment. Okay, that's the ethical view. Another here is this picture of 6 persons looking at an elephant. Okay. If you notice, they are focused on only one aspect of the elephant. This guy is looking at only the ears and calls it a fan. This one is focused on the tusk, okay, and calls it a spear. This one is focused on the trunk and calls it a snake. This one sa paa at tree daw yan. Ito naman is yung buntot, sabi niya it's a rope. And for this guy, focus on the wide big tummy of the elephant, calls it a wall. Okay. So they are all wrong. And their mistake is they failed to see the bigger picture. Okay? Sometimes reality is like this. It only appears to us in one way or another. And reality also appears to another person in a different way. And our mistake usually is to be myopic. That means yung nakikita lang ninyo ang realidad sa inyo. Okay? And we happen to quarrel against each other based on this myopic view of a very tiny part of the entire reality. The ethical view actually is to step back. Why step back? Because you might be very much involved in a reality that you already fail to see the bigger picture. The ethical view is more fundamental. You step back and try to see the bigger picture. That's when you understand that your perspectives are but parts of one big reality. Another thing that could happen to you is this. This is actually another illusion of a picture of an old lady and a young lady in one. That means, if you see the young lady and you fail to see the old lady immediately, there are some biases that you already have that enables you to recognize only the young lady. Likewise, kung nakikita mo ay yung old lady agad-agad and you struggle to see the young one, you already have biases that make you see the old lady immediately. Usually in a face-to-face class, I will show you the old lady first. Or half of the class I will show you the old lady first. And then the other half will see the young one. What happens is, when I finally show you this picture, the group to whom I showed the old one would immediately see the old woman. Likewise, the group to whom I showed the young one would immediately see the young one. Ang ibig sabihin nito ay, our perspectives can be determined. Okay? So, minsan, yung kinalakihan natin, it already forms a very important lens through which we see everything. Okay? Doon na tayo nakafocus, hindi na natin nakikita yung iba. Okay? So, eto yung danger. No? Usually, our cultural etiquettes, our laws, our religion would form strong lenses through which we see everything. At hindi na natin tumatanggal sa ating pagtingin. Ethics would tell you that is not always right. Ethics tells you that minsan ganyan lang ang pagtingin mo because nakalakihan mo na ito. And it's not because it is always right, but just because you grew up, you were instilled. I hope it won't lead to the term brainwashed, no? But sometimes people are brainwashed in seeing things this or that way. Okay? So, what then is ethics? Okay. Etong ethical view in summary here is, first, you have to consider the other's perspective. You see the bigger picture and be mindful of your determinants. There are other stories here that will help you understand what ethics is. You were asked to read the story about the battleship and the lighthouse in your module 1, page 39. As well, read also the anthropologist's story in page 40. So the battleship story is about a captain, a battleship captain, having naval practices in a stormy weather. No? So the visibility was poor, it was dark, it was in the evening, there was fog, and the captain was on the bridge looking at everything going on, making sure na hindi sila bumangga. Suddenly, the lookout reported that there's a light right in front of them. Okay? So the captain asked if it's steady or it's moving, and the lookout said steady. That means they are on a collision course. So the captain ordered the lookout, signal that ship that we are in a collision course, order the ship to change course 20 degrees. Nagreply yung light. No? Sabi niya, you change course 20 degrees. Parang na-bad trip si captain dito. So sabi niya, send, I'm a captain, change course 20 degrees. Pero nag-reply ulit yung light at the other end. Sabi niya, I'm a seaman second class, you better change course 20 degrees. So by this time, furious na si captain kasi second class seaman lang nag-order sa kanya. Sabi ng captain, send that I'm a battleship, you change course 20 degrees. Okay? And this one happens actually usually sa atin, no? Sometimes when you say I'm a captain, you are recourse to your own authority. Ginagamit mo yung authority mo, at sometimes pag hindi ito effective, your last resort is use authority, no? Use force. No? I'm a battleship. Okay? Pero sabi ng reply, I'm a lighthouse. Diba? So yung ilaw pala na naka-direct sa course ng battleship ay hindi another ship. It is actually a lighthouse. And you know what lighthouses are in maritime navigation, right? Lighthouses are our sources of direction, especially in a dark, stormy weather where there's poor visibility everywhere. Ganito ang ethical principles. Isa silang mga lighthouses, okay, na hindi mo kayang or pwedeng or dapat banggain because they stand still and they are the guide. No matter how much authority you have, you're a captain of a ship, no matter how many force or strong force you have, like you're a battleship, hindi mo pwedeng paalisin, banggain, o labanan ang isang lighthouse. Likewise, kahit sino ka man, kahit anong authority ka man meron, kahit anong puwersa ka man na pwedeng gamitin, you cannot go against ethical principles. Another story here is the anthropologist. The anthropologist wanted to study a group of people, native aboriginal tribal peoples in a certain island. So to do this, he visited each tribe alternately. So in one island, there are, let's say, 5 different tribes. What the anthropologists learned is that each tribe has their own unique customs, traditions, morals, rituals, and belief systems. And one common belief is that their god lives on top of the huge mountain near their village. Okay? So there are 5 villages separated around the island, and they all believe that they have a god living on top of a mountain near their village. Pero iba-iba yung kanilang religion at saka god. So the anthropologists learned that their history was influenced by how they believe their God actually leads their lives, grant them blessings, protect them from enemies. Past wars was even because of their differences in religion. Okay. Now, after the anthropologists learned so much about these 5 tribes, the anthropologist needed to go back to the university and publish his findings. When the anthropologist was on the plane, he wanted to, last time, glance at the island. And what he saw is this. The tribal peoples surround one mountain only. Okay? So sa pagtingin ng mga tribal people, tig-iisa sila ng mountain. Ang akala nila, iba yung mountain nila sa mountain ng ibang tribe. Pero, in reality, iisang malaking mountain lang pala ang nasa island na yon, and they were all referring to the one and the same island. So, ano ang matututunan natin sa kwentong ito? That to have the ethical view, you need to see the entire picture and be on a different level, like the anthropologist on a plane, to see the holistic reality that is going on. Okay, so from these 2 stories, you'll see what ethical principles do. From the battleship and the lighthouses story, you'll see that ethical principles stand like lighthouses. They are guides. And from the anthropologist and the island villages story, you'll see that the ethical view is the holistic view, the one that sees all. Okay. So from here, what is it that you need to understand before you understand ethics? Before you understand ethics, you need to understand the difference between morality and ethics. Kasi magkaiba ito. Okay? And that means you need a paradigm shift. Bakit paradigm shift? Because you have already acquired standards in many or from many sources. And your lives are actually different from one another because of various factors that affected your growing up's years and experiences. So sometimes you unlearn things, sometimes you learn something new. Sometimes you confuse standards and mix them up together. As a result, you may have been insisting your own way over others' ways, your personal values against another personal values. We have already discussed this in our lesson 1 and lesson 2. So what you need is a paradigm shift. No? Dapat ma-realize mo na etong way of looking at things mo, hindi ito talaga yung tama lagi. Nagmumukha lang silang tama lagi dahil nakalakihan mo ito at nasanay ka na dito. At eto na yung paradigm mo. Paradigm is your main lens by which you see things. Okay? So, a paradigm shift is what you experience when you tried to resolve the errors in the pictures in the previous slides. Okay? Yung nga pala, 'di ba? Yung ganung reaction. Nga pala, iisang realidad lang pero nagtatalo sila dahil magkaiba sila ng view. Nga pala, iisang realidad pero what we only see are mere parts of that big reality and we insist on the reality that we see. Nga pala, ito yung matindi, we can be determined. Okay? When we can be determined, that means hindi dahil alam mong tama talaga, but rather dahil yun ang nalakihan mong view. Well, paradigm shift is coined by Thomas Kuhn in his work Scientific Revolutions. So, what is a paradigm? It is a model, a structure, or a lens through which you see or understand some reality. So what you need to do is to make a paradigm shift. Okay? So the way you understand what is good or bad is a paradigm formed from your family, culture, customs, traditions, religions, and the like. So while morality comes naturally to all of us from birth, thinking and reflecting on morality is something that we must choose to do. Ito yung old paradigm mo. What you got naturally from birth. What you got from culture, what you got from your family, what you got from your relatives, from your community, laws, traditions, and from your religions. They are actually your first paradigms. What ethics wants you to do is to think and reflect on these paradigms that you had. Okay? Kasi hindi mo pinag-isipan yan, hindi mo clarify, hindi ka nag-reflect. No? Ang ginawa mo is tanggap mo lang yan, na-discuss na natin to, dahil authority yan. Diba? Most people do not even dare to reflect on their morality in their whole lifetime. Nabuhay silang sinunod yung kultura nila, nabuhay silang hindi nila question yung laws na sinunod nila, nabuhay sila ng matagal na sunod-sunuran sa kung ano mang sinabi ng relihiyon nila. Hindi nila in-apply ang thinking at reflecting. So, we are rational by nature, but applying rationality is not always done by rational individuals. Kailangan mong gawin ito at piliin ito. Rational beings kayo, conscious beings kayo, pero not all the time ina-apply niyo yung rationality ninyo. When you apply rationality, you need a conscious will and effort para gawin ito. No? Para sabihin mo sa sarili mo, I will use my reason. I will apply my reason. And that actually is what ethics is. Ethics, basically speaking, is applying thinking to morality. Okay? Ibig sabihin yan is yung thinking mo, yung rationality mo, is yan yung gagamitin mo to understand your morality. Anong morality? Yung mga rules na natutunan mo from culture, from tradition, from laws, and from your own religion. Lahat yan, dapat gamitin mo yung rationality mo para maintindihan mo kung tama ba talaga o hindi. So that basically is what ethics is. And that is basically what we will do in this course. To always apply rationality, thinking, and to reflect on the rules that we have accepted to be right or wrong. Okay, so that is all for this discussion. For now, when we meet again face-to-face, we will review this and we will go over the next parts of this lesson. Okay. Thank you.